What is going on, my fellow Vikings? It is Ghost here. Today's video is part 2 of a series that I was working on with regards to the toxicity and harassment that I was undergoing during my time on the Comfy Valheim server. If you haven't seen part 1, check the description of this video. The link for that video will be there. There'll also be a time card in the top right corner of your screen. But in the last video, we left off where I was introducing my friend Grom, and he was going to have some things to say to help corroborate my story as well as tell his. So before we get into the thick of it, I'd like to introduce my friend Grom, and I'm gonna allow him to explain what his position was on the server, just so you guys get an understanding that this person was one of the top admins on the server at the time of all of this happening. And then I'm gonna give Grom some mic time to be able to explain everything that was happening and everything that he experienced while on the server. I will give you a fair warning, there is strong language in this video. It was set up sort of like a podcast interview. It was very raw, it was very real. There was no script. It was just the two of us chatting like two friends over Discord, and I'm presenting it here for you guys to listen. Again, if you haven't seen any of the other videos, the links for those will be in the description of this video, so check them out. But without any other delay, here is Grom and his story. Okay, so basically what you know that I obviously had a lot of frustrations, and when I was placed in as an admin, it was an agreement between me and the server owner, and I said I didn't want the position, and he chatted it for a bit, and I said, okay, well, here's the situation. I'll be support and enforcement of, you know, anything that has to do with conflict. At the time, you were sitting in as, what was your position again?
So when you were onboarded as admin, I was the director of game masters.
So during my time on Comfy, the two top tier admins were called Game Masters and Operations. Grom was on Game Masters, I was Operations. They were unilateral in decision making, but they were the top tier of the admins. So being the director of the Game Masters, he essentially directed all of the Game Masters. So he was at the top of the food chain. Moving forward, we're going to get into the section of the interview where Grom starts talking about how decentralized and toxic the staff in Comfy was. He will also touch on points that have to do with sexual harassment and other verbal harassment points. Again, I will warn you, the language is strong, so viewer discretion is advised.
When I had gotten put in a position of game master, I was thrown into the middle of an already existing set of ordeals. At the time, there was a player by the name of Wick who I was friends with, and he brought me up on the server as a young player that was just being really terrible. Stonewalling players, hiding behind positions of authority. He was being hyper rude to people. And there was a lot of other claims too that were coming in DM boxes to just game masters by and large that went unsupported with facts, but lined up largely based off of how many DMs we were coming in terms of what the offense was and if it was plausible. There was also Ember, which was another female that I guess was actually assaulting people. I played with her like twice. I never really talked to her. But I was the guy that was like, yeah, I'll take creative point on this. I'll be the center point so that we can make sure that everything's running smooth and we're creating, and Air 3 is going to be the best thing that we can. And so when I rogered into doing that, I also rogered into being the bearer of bad news, like the Ian Hazakasas of Comfy. Wick and Ember needed to be disciplined according to what had previously existed. And I was like, I'm the guy now. I have to do this. I can't run away from the bad things and deliver only the good things. That's not what a leader is. A leader is fair and firm in every direction, which is what I was. And so I did tell Wick that he had his moderator powers removed. And Sorik was there, the server owner was there. And I also told him that he was welcome to stay around and play. And I think he did. He took a break for a little bit, and he did. Ember decided to just peel off and do her own thing, and that was the end of that. Or so we thought. By the time Era 3 had launched, myself, Burn Cave, Sylvie, and Sancho, which are the game masters at that time. Sylvie was big into sexual harassment though, and that was a big thing. And it was
Yep.
really hard to get her removed. I talked to her 2 or 3 times. I talked with Annie about it. It was really impossible to get her removed. She had anathema in her pocket and was buddy buddy with a lot of the more pro
Don't even
LGBTQ
bother.
or whatever. Yeah, don't even bother. She had really deep connections with a lot of these old admins that are okay with sexual assault. They
Hmm.
really are. Don't even bother is completely okay with a sexually assaulting other women and not saying a thing about it. But the minute that a man does it, she's not about it at all.
Right.
There's a double standard there, and getting Sylvie removed in that component in that capacity, despite the outcry from the player base, proved to be incredibly problematic for me. I didn't think that she should be there. I talked to her on 2 separate occasions about needing to stop the sexual assault. She went on a 2-week leave of absence, and then came back, and it still didn't get any better, and eventually ended up stepping down from just from the position because of the stress of it all. However, she did do a lot in terms of the infrastructure that was built. So did Burn Cave, so did Sancho, and so did myself. But by the time Era 3 had launched, I think within 2 or 3 days of the launch, all 4 or 5 of us, including yourself, all stepped down from GM. The reason that is because the undertaking of building the server was massive,
It was
and
so.
predominantly it
Oh
was
man.
only us 5.
Yeah, yeah. It was.
Um,
It burned me out, dude. Burned me out.
But what burned out the game masters wasn't the creating aspect of it. It wasn't the organizing aspect. It was the constant, unending, relentless onslaught of PR and interpersonal communications that
Let's talk
happened
about
coming
that.
from Marco. Yeah, go ahead, dude.
No, no, like
100%.
you keep going. Let's focus on that because that is something that my video is focusing heavily on is player health. Like I call it mental health, but like it's more of like you, me, everybody else, we get on video games as either an escape, a hobby, or something to do. The last thing we want to do is, you know, feel like we're not wanted or have to deal with what comfy was, especially in staff chat, with regards to like every day I would get on staff chat and see some kind of happening in there or some kind of immature
Yeah,
conversations or stuff like
I
that.
never took. That's exactly why I never, and to this day, you'll never see me talk in staff chat. Some people will say it's because I don't have an audience in staff chat. Dub has actually called me out on that, and to which I say, I don't think that's entirely true. In some capacity, it is, because there's a clique of the moderators and devs, both of which have zero say. Should technically have zero say in the creative elements of the game. Moderators are there to ensure that you're following the rules, not to build and run events, and most definitely not to make creative decisions. That's what game masters are there for, and creators. Otherwise, the roles wouldn't exist, and everyone would just be a mod. Mods, just for everyone's knowledge, mods are designed to be the police force of the server. They're gonna ban you. They're the ones that hand out the bans. They're the ones that hand out the tickets and handle the tickets. The devs are there to develop the server. I have no clue why a single dev has any say in anything. The Janice and Dub are 2 of the most cancerous players I think I've ever come across. I've never heard them make a definitive statement on anything. Like they want their opinions to be so impactful that they are centrifugal in decision making. However, they want zero part in the decision making process in both in a negative capacity, and they want all of the praise in a positive capacity. And don't even bothers like this. Martin is like this. Dub is like this. Janice is like this. Marco is like this. Nautilus is like this. Xerxes is most definitely like this. All of these players have either actively griefed, emotionally griefed, physically griefed in game. They're constantly in my inbox throughout all of this, or constantly in all the other GMs inboxes spreading misinformation to try and just create problems. They can't give up the leadership and for the next guard to move in. It's basically what it was. And
Yeah, it's their
in the
clique
end,
that's getting moved out, and they don't like it.
yeah, exactly. And in that same, it was that same clique that ended up banning me for standing up against ill bans and other things. And it was also that same clique that was resultant of me having a really rough morning one morning when I logged in, and eventually just stepping down and stepping away from the server for 2 weeks.
At this point of the conversation, it transitioned into talking about events, issues with events, loot balancing, things like that, stuff that was a little off topic. It wasn't until later on in the conversation that we returned back to talking about issues within Comfy. I've cut out the portion that has to do with loot balancing and events because it was a little off topic for what this video is focusing on. So at this point, we started talking about the issues of Comfy again.
All right, so just to preface, I've never once had an actual voice chat with Dub. I've never heard that the coward, he won't use his voice around me or even get in a Discord channel with me. He hides behind the facade of being a dev, does nothing for the community except for complain. When Wick and Ember were going through their bans and appeals process, one of which I didn't even start. It kind of just was there, and I had to take it over because I was the GM, and nobody else wanted to touch it. They were all like, don't even bother. All these veteran players, they were cowards. They didn't want to touch it. They didn't want to deal with it. They had been burnt out from it, and so I stepped up and took care of it. Dub and Zerbzes and Marco. Now these are mods and devs, mind you. These were the predominant propaganda engines for creating the giant meltdown at the end of Era 2 into the opening of Era 3. They were the ones in the DMs feeding misinformation to people. They were the ones giving Wick and Ember access to the document for submitting Q&As for text events and giving them access to voice channels and streams that they shouldn't have access to after their bans. And somehow they weren't banned over this. They just were able to do this and get away with it scot-free. It's not okay. It wasn't okay then. It's not okay now, and it's still happening. It's still happening, and it will continue to happen so long as they're there and they're doing that. And no one's playtime is safe or fair or even with them in positions of leadership. They are highly compromised characters in terms of both moral and ethical fiber, and they lack the ability to make a single decision that is fair and firm, or hold a conversation with anyone that starkly opposes or even minutely opposes their viewpoints in that capacity. And so that is where it started. That is how it started, with these mods and these mods and these devs trying to turn the players against the game masters that were in charge of the creation of Era 3.
It's funny you say that because I literally just said basically the same thing in the video I just made. Is essentially
was bad.
Essentially they will with don't even bother. Her famous thing is she'll ask you for your opinion, you give it, and then she staunchly argues with you, or she'll have some kind of input in a conversation that is condescending and doesn't add any input into the conversation whatsoever. It's more of like a, hey, here's my stab, and then I say nothing else. It's like,
it is. She's just a troll, dude. Like, she just gets her rocks off by inciting some level. Her favorite thing is to try and establish a level of intellectual superiority. She has a very, very, very small image of herself, and it results in her really struggling to prove that she's equal in terms of time investment and creative energies with the other content creators. Mind you, she doesn't create content. She doesn't do anything at all. Like, she doesn't really even build spreadsheets for the most part. I looked at the Comfy Drive and all these wonderful amazing organizational spreadsheets that she supposedly built. Guys, there's no infrastructure there. Whatever infrastructure does exist was created by the game masters that I'm discussing that stepped down. Everything else is kind of just, it really is. Annie is probably the only person on that server that is worth
I
her
agree.
weight, and
Yeah.
even then she won't, chomp a fight off that's
No.
in a losing posture in terms of the social. Because you have to think, dude, the server's not very large, right? There's maybe 50 persistent players throughout the day, and of that 50, 20 of them are all leaders.
Mm-hmm.
uh
Yeah.
there's way more
Yep.
and they can't figure the they want to do with their time or energy.
Yeah. I know
It
Annie
gets the
is
players nowhere.
Annie is very invested, and honestly, I have nothing bad to say about Annie. If I had to say that there was one weakness, it was like you'd bring a situation to her, and she would side with you, but then at the same time listen to everybody else's side and also side with them. So it was never really there was no real conflict mitigation or resolution. But other than that, solid person. I have nothing bad to say about her, but you may have other experiences. I'm just saying that from my standpoint, it was more like, hey, I have this issue, and just the day that I left, I believe it was the 28th of August that I said enough is enough, and I messaged Annie, and she basically said to me was, I wish I knew that this stuff was going on, and I would have done something about it. And I said to her, I have been complaining for 2 months about this. This has not been a secret. I have messaged you previously. I have messaged many people in regards to the issues that I've been having, and nobody's done anything.
Well,
So,
and Annie runs into the same problem that I think you and I ran into. When I look at the meta analysis of what happened, right? There's a lot of drama that goes into it, but I can boil it down to a simple procedure that failed. What happened was in Era 2, Comfy Valheim was gaining traction. It had the potential to be incredibly it had the potential to be way better today than it is. The changes that it needed to undergo were changes that moved it more in a executive direction in terms of leadership structure and how ideas are fielded and iterated into the actual game. Comfy Valheim at the time was much closer to an MMO than it was to Valheim. It had custom quest lines, custom content, and we had a lot of players that were on. My goal was to make that change. It was to move the leadership into a more executively structured engine that worked with procedures and standard operating procedures that answered questions by and large based off of what the standard of procedure was. In order to do this, we had to move a couple leaders around and restructure the server to operate a little bit more like a business than what it currently is, which is kind of a conglomerate of people that want to feel a little bit more important than they are, each other off in creative meetings that last 5 hours at a time, telling each other how great they all are living in this phallicytical playland. I wanted to move away from that phallicytical playland and move into a direction of accomplishment and generate enough content with enough structure and enough scheduling to keep players engaged, to keep players locking on, to keep drawing new players in with catch-up systems in order to create an inline player base and move it really in the direction of an MMO. I wanted the persistent player base to be in the 80s and not in the 40s or 30s. And we did that for the first 2 weeks. We really did. And it would have been consistent had I stayed around and fought the good fight and been doing it. However, the result would have been the same. Guys, everyone that's at Comfy that's listening, I need you to understand. The people that are in charge of your game time do not care about your game time. They do not care
no, they
about
don't.
how you feel when you play their events. They care about how they feel when you play their events. They care about how novel and unique their reward is because they want you carrying the reward, not how it impacts your gameplay loop and makes your gameplay experience better, not how it adds to your element. They do not care about your time. They do not care about your retention or engagement. They do not give about the organization or ensuring that you feel safe, that you feel heard, and that your ideas feel vetted and flushed out.
It
They
is
don't care.
nothing but a ruse, because I
It
came
really
in
is.
there. Do you remember you and I were at odds about my idea with, making sure that when there's conflict that there, like, I don't want to get too deep into the idea, but essentially I had an idea that roughly was kind of like a court, but
It
you,
was a
I
way
mean,
to deal with these sexual harassment problems that we were
it
having.
not only just
Guys, it was.
that, not
Yeah, I
only
know,
just
but that's
that,
what it was born from, right? We
yeah,
had this influx of like sexual predators, dude,
mm-hmm,
that were just like, I don't know why, but the comfy Valheim network was infiltrated by sexual predators. There's an office joke for you.
yeah,
Um, and we had to come up with something, and you came in hardballing it, and I really respected that. But for every time that I was already getting 80 DMs a day from the same 15 people
yeah.
about 30 different topics hazing me, and every time you strong armed a post in Discord, I got an extra 15 people DMing
Yeah,
me the same
I'm
shit, and I
sorry,
was
but
like,
like, that's the problem, is they're all so squishy and they don't like somebody new coming in and saying, what you're doing is not working, so we're taking it in a different direction, and this is how it's going to be. Because the problem is, it's like those kids were never uh um their parents never put them on timeout. They've never had to experience somebody coming in and saying, no, you're not doing this right, this is how it's going to happen, because they think, oh well, I've done my time, I can say or do whatever I want. But the problem is all the things that they were doing were the reasons why Comfy was so toxic and nothing was getting changed. So when Sorek said to me, we need a more militarized structure, it made sense to me why he put you where you were, and it made sense to me why he agreed with the way that I said I wanted to do things. And I said to him, I said, you will be getting complaints. People are not going to like, I mean, I'm not going to throw it up on my screen and read it for you, but I'll paraphrase. Basically, I said, you're going to get complaints. People are not going to like the way that I am. They have no idea of real world. They've never dealt with a person like me in a position of authority. And I told them, be warned, this is going to happen. And I came in and I said, this is what needs to happen. This is how it's going to happen. This is what I'm going to do. And like, obviously you helped try to straighten, narrow the path for me to get through. But they fought it tooth and nail every single time I spoke. And it was just like, they don't care. They literally don't care that people are getting harassed. They don't care that, people are feeling not wanted. Even before I was an ops member, I was getting DMs from players, and still to this day, I literally have one sitting in my inbox on Discord right as we speak, of players complaining about Comfy. So I said, Annie even said, we know you care about the players, because that's all I cared about, was making sure that the players' health was made, was good. Because without the players, what is Comfy? Just a bunch of people trying to be the boss is essentially what it is. And without player engagement, that's nothing. So I wanted to focus on making sure that people felt wanted, safe, and not being sexually harassed, or not having toxic admins or moderators after them every time they spoke. And I got railroaded every time.
yeah, and I did too. And I think it's really important for people to know. Look, you guys are gonna hear, as soon as this video goes live and anybody watches it, that's anybody. Listen, you guys are gonna hear 100 million different opinions. I get that. The same people that kicked me out of the community and stonewalled me the entire time are gonna be spewing the same hate and the same ignorance and the same lies. Guys, hear me now when I say this, okay? For the Shaper speaks. I never once, ever forced a decision through. I never once pushed any of the old leadership that refused to let go outside of the decision-making circle. In fact, I got heat from my current leadership team who wanted me to, for not doing that and still allowing, don't even bother, Martin, Marco, Dub, and all these opinions on all this. All of their opinions were still taken into account, still weighed, and I still gave out some decisions in their favor for the sake of equality and fairness, despite there being slightly better options to have chosen from. Because
Absolutely, yeah.
everyone's voice, it was my opinion that everyone's voice was important. Every single leader had to leave their mark on Comfy a better place than how we took it over. And I think that for those leaders that stepped down, we accomplished it. And I think that there's a level of greed and narcissism and inability to recognize themselves. Like, there's the human predicament, right? Your nose is in the center of your face, and it'll tell you if something stinks in the room. Like if it's a person, they got bad breath, or if they haven't showered, it'll tell you. But if you haven't brushed your teeth in 3 days, your nose isn't going to tell you that you smell bad. Okay? This is the human predicament. And players such as Dub don't even bother. Xerxes, Marco, Gandalf, Nautilus. I mean, the list is probably 8 strong, honestly, of these really ill intent in real players with really ill intentions.
And
They
these are
can't see past their own nose.
these are
And
sub
these are
staff.
leaders.
Well, they're
Yeah,
sub
I mean,
staff.
these are,
They're
I mean,
not
they're
admin.
not really. They're not. There's so many of them that they stonewall the admins. The day that I got banned was the day after Mayo got banned. The day before Jade Prime got banned, and 2 additional GMs stepped down. The top 2 GMs, Sledge and Shelby, they stepped down in lieu of all the events. The reason that they did is because the way they handled it was not in line with the primary thought of these 8 players who are not in the decision-making process whatsoever, but they complain so hard in staff chat that these GMs have to step down. Guys, game masters are there to create content for you. If you want to become a game master, the way for you is there. All you have to do is create and be an awesome player. But no one wants to do it anymore because the devs and the mods refuse to let you come in and have any level of leadership and any level of creativity that isn't through them or by them.
Right.
Guys, it is a problem, and that is just the base of the problem.
Tell me,
go into like all the other lies and they've done.
tell me how I went from you literally daily calling me Captain Canuck, the humble, quiet guy, to being this angry, frustrated person. That doesn't just happen at a flip of a switch. My change of character happened specifically because of how the top tier leadership actually acts. And it's like every day I would wake up and some kind of issue would be happening, and it's like, guys, why are you voicing your opinion? Why don't we have solutions instead of drama? It's like, okay, well, yeah, go for it,
dude. That was me, dude. That was it, right? Like, don't bring problems, bring solutions. It was literally my saying. I said it at every leadership meeting. That and touch base. I was really big on touch and base, ensuring everyone was rapping the same shit of music, and bring solutions, not problems. Solve it at the smallest level possible. Not everyone needs to be in on the vote every time for every thing, dude. If somebody's asking, can I get a invincible spawner? Game masters don't need to know about that, guys. We don't. That's a mod problem. Don't submit it to GM Ops chat. We don't need to know about it. But that's not... No one wanted to use their brain cells and think about these things. They all just want this conglomerate chat where they can all each other off and get to this end state where they all feel happy and fuzzy and nobody's feelings are hurt.
Except for yours and mine and anybody else that doesn't align with their thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, like, I totally agree with that. I would totally say that that's accurate. They really are, and honestly, it wouldn't bother me. It wouldn't bother me in the slightest if Comfy was better because of it, but it's not. It's actually worse because the people that are in charge, guys, before I got banned, my events were getting griefed by Gandalf and Nautilus and Dub and all these other Xerxes primarily too. You can get, if you guys have questions, there's plenty of players who were hazed by him simply for playing with me in the late days before I got banned. But I had a ticket that was open for 7 days, guys. 7 days. My events were being griefed, and griefed with evidence that was almost undoubtable, guys. Like, short of actually catching Gandalf griefing my events, he griefed my Foundry raid and then decorated his whole house in metal ore. and got away with it. Mind you, the loot that you got from the raid was metal ore. That was the reward. And he got away with destroying the whole raid, griefing the entire Riddle of Steel quest line, and decorating his whole house and all the that he stole from the quests after griefing it, and never once got in trouble for it. Not once. And the ticket was open for 7 days. 7 days. Nothing got done. 7 business days, guys. When I was a GM, tickets were open for 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
I was in mod chat. Hey, are you guys checking tickets?
Do you remember when
Tickets?
Do you remember when I said, when it came to the Wick situation, that I said, you know, that his ban appeal has been open for 5 days. If somebody doesn't do something about it tonight, I'm going to. Like, they made him wait for 5 days. And dude, I had done an investigation that day. I remember, dude. I was working up north, right? So it was a Friday. No, sorry, it was a Monday. And I was driving up north to get to go to the cottage that I was working on. And while I was driving up north, I was on the phone in my truck on Discord interviewing people as to what was happening, what was your experience, what was said, what was done. And even before I was in the truck, dude, it was 3 hours, because I remember getting off the phone when I pulled up to the cottage. But, you know, while I was packing my truck, doing everything, 3 hours I did it. And I said into the chat, sorry, I got a frog in my throat here. I said into chat, I think it was GM Ops, this is the story as I know it. These are the series of events that have been told to me, that on multiple different occasions they have all said the same thing. So if, you know, 5 people say the same thing, this has got to be somewhat factual. So only one person said this, I'll admit that. But this is the facts as I know it. So do with it what you will and vote accordingly. And nobody did anything. And then, you know, 5 days later, while the ticket was still open and Wick kept messaging me, I was ignoring him. I finally said, you know, enough is enough. Do something about it or I will. Because it was like nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole because of how polarizing it was.
That was actually not the first, not the second, not the third, but the 4th vote to get Wick back in for the 3rd time. Okay.
This was his actual ban. I do realize that.
The last one.
Yeah.
This was the last one, and I was a game master for it, and I remember it vividly, because if you remember earlier in this chat, I said that sometimes I went with other people's decisions, despite being the guy in charge, because it was fair. It was fair to trust other leaders' judgments. And this particular time, I had voted no on him being reintroduced into the player base 3 times consistently in a 24-hour period. My vote was I always waited till the end to cast my vote, and I always voted unbiased and fair. And each time, for the last 3 votes, my vote was the deciding yes or no. It was split. And I voted 3 different times no. And on the 4th time, it came up. The 4th time in 24 hours, this vote came up that was spearheaded by Dub and Marco and the rest of these mods that are just spitting to the player base to get it constantly resubmitted for vote. Constantly. And they have eyes on everything. So they're like insider trading, bro. They're Martha Stewarting the out of the situation. The 4th time, Burn Cave, he was another GM. He had said, I'll take personal responsibility for it. I will. I abstained my vote. Abstained my vote, and it passed.
So just a little bit more, but just a little bit more of that situation. The reason why Burn did that was because both him and I were in a chat with Wick when I strong-armed him, and I said, listen, Wick, you want your moderator status back. These are the expectations that need to be done. If you can promise to me that you accept the consequences of not doing these without attesting them, then I will champion to have you back in. And I had a good hour-long conversation of really, like, this wasn't I'm gonna be soft on you. I was hard on him. And when that conversation ended, Burn said, I'll take responsibility. Essentially, I'll be his PO. And that's what happened. So I said, okay, I put the vote in. And everybody was against it. Do you remember there was a big polarizing debate? And I said, listen, guys, you need to trust me here. I've had a conversation with him. And I even remember saying, I think it may have been to Annie, that, you know, we have to let him fail instead of, you know, we have to let the situation play out. And sure enough, he failed. He was banned. And it was Burn that did it. And
Yeah, and Dub and they made it impossible for us to stay and play after that.
right, because
After their one of their good friends up and was an and
yep.
got banned, and we were the ones that had to deal with it. Dub, instead of being a good dev and a good moderator, Marco, instead of being a good moderator, and Nautilus and all these other dude, instead of being good players and good moderators and understanding that he's our friend too. We didn't want to do this any more than anybody else did, but he did this to people, and we're in charge now. They used the player base against us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It
And
was
like I
terrible.
said in my story,
Terrible.
for days, days and days and days, I was belittled, harassed. Remember the town hall? How like
Yep.
it was like just shit on Ghost Day, to the point where I had to say, guys, enough is enough. If you have any questions, PM me. I will talk to you outside of this, and we'll deal with this. Don't bring it in here. I was willing to take the show on myself in my DMs because there was just so much. It was so much going on with the Wick situation. I was like, enough is enough. I'll tell you what happened because I'm the one that was directly involved with it. Burn, he dropped the ban, but Burn dropped the ban because he said he would undertake Wick as like I said, like a parole officer, so to say. But either way, yeah, the whole situation was messed up, and you and I and a few others were all harassed to the point we didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it was bad, dude. It was. And it's literally what happened, what Dub did is basically what I got banned for. He was complaining in rally chat. Anathema at the same time was telling people literally as a moderator.
I saw the whole thing. I have it.
Yeah.
I have it saved.
Dub says something along the lines of like trying to silence people's voices, dude. Me and Dub have we've never talked in person. Guys, if you think that this guy is telling you the truth, he's a coward. He will not get in voice comms with me. I've tried plenty of times to talk to him and Zerbzes and figure out what it is that they have against me. What is this vendetta that they have? In fact, one time I just added them in staff chat and said, hey, we should talk. And Zerbzes went ahead and told Annie at that time that he was intimidated by my position of authority and that it was just too much anxiety for him to have a conversation with somebody that had the potential to ban him, and that the only way he would feel safe is that if I went ahead and told Annie, who is a woman, what I wanted to discuss with Zerbzes so that she could have the conversation with him, because he felt more safe and accommodated having a discussion with a woman than he did with a man. And so these are the kinds of people that are choosing whether or not you guys are banned or not, people.
Yeah.
That's literally the conversation. And mind you, I had never talked to him before then. I had just heard through DMs, constant, unending, bombarding DMs, that he's just talking a lot of trash and spreading a lot of rumors.
And how many times did I ask to have that guy removed? Many times.
Oh yeah, plenty of times. And same with Dub, right? I added Dub, and I said the same thing. Hey, hey Dub, we should talk. And he thinks that for whatever reason there was some silencing of the voices or something, like that. You guys can't just type in rally chat or general chat whenever you have something that you want said. Under my leadership, you could. Under the current regime, that's what gets you banned, and I'm a current example of that. Is openly communicating what you want in the player base is regular chat channels, which you should be able to do. So if there's anybody silencing voices, Dub, it's you, and you're so you can bud.
Yeah, I called many times, and every single time I mentioned that he should be removed, I was stonewalled or ignored. I even used the Google Doc for filing complaints. Ignored. It was just like, okay, so why does this guy have so much power? Zilith Online.
They really don't, right?
Zilith Online was one. Zilith Online. So I had it out with him during the conversation with Wick in voice chat where Burn was present, and
I'm not even tripping on that guy, dude. He's a nutcase, bro.
You know what? He is very opinionated, but it wasn't until he was removed from the audience when I had a private conversation with him that he understood what was going on. He was raring to go because his buddy Dub was there trashing all over me, but as soon as I had a conversation with him one-on-one, I explained him the situation and I told him, and he was chill with it after. And then after Wick was reinstated as, I don't remember if he went in as moderator or he went in as creator, I said to Zillith, I said, I told you I was here to try to get his position back, but he has to understand. And then he was chill after that. But it wasn't because it was because Dub was there, you know, trash talking, doing this, doing that. And it was just like, you know what I mean? Like when Dub says to me, I don't work for you, it's like, whoa, dude, that's not even on the plate right now. We're just talking about, you know, your behavior, and you're just being. It got to the point, dude, that like even Red said to me, you know, you handled the situation well, because I didn't want to look like an idiot and go off like he was. So I was very calm, and I said, you know what, I need you to like basically relax and just let the situation unfold and figure out from there. And he just kept going on and on and on to the point I blocked the dude. I blocked him, and I've never blocked anybody on Discord. He's the only person on my blocked list on Discord.
Dub is like literally one of the most cancerous people I think I've ever played with. I totally forgot that. So Dub told Xylith Online, I guess, you know, that the way that I became a creator or you know, anything really is just by complaining, I guess. So
untrue.
He didn't yeah,
I was there. I was in that voice chat.
I don't have to defend it. I don't. Anyone that played with me, like, guys, come on. I designed the entire frontier system for Era 3. I did the red raids. Like, come on, guys. You're kidding me, right? Like, I built the Twisted Pine, which was a community build that gave shop owners their very first shop.
Vikea, you know, like
Ikea for the player base. Like, our builds pulled in actual players to the server. I did nothing but create events. Like, come on, guys. It's not even something that needs to be contested, right? It's literally this guy, who, and honestly, if I'm being honest, I don't know anything about this. I don't know it to be true. I've never played with Dubs. I never played with Xerxes. But Mayo and Annie and all the other leaders that I basically played with basically told me that they think that they have a chip on their shoulder against me because they are trying to do exactly what I'm doing and just can't do it as well. They can't generate content. People don't inherently enjoy playing with them the way that they kind of did with me. And yeah, that's just what it is. I think that Dub is just the kind of guy that's kind of always been like an outcast his whole life. Like maybe a little bit nerdy. He's never really dated a good looking girl. Maybe he makes a lot of money now, and for some reason he's still vastly unpopular with humankind. And he's a beta Chad, dude. And I'm not, bro.
The funny thing is, you mentioned Annie,
alpha, bro, and I on Dub, dude. Like,
so the funny thing, Annie said to me, I'm trying to find it right now, but it's buried somewhere, but I'll paraphrase as essentially, he's probably mad because he was passed over for Grom. That's essentially what she said to me.
Yeah, and that wouldn't surprise me, dude. But he doesn't play. He doesn't create content. He doesn't get out and enjoy the player base, you know?
Yeah, neither does not even bother. Don't even bother. She doesn't even bother to log on to Valheim. She doesn't even bother to create an event. She doesn't bother to do anything, really. So she's aptly named because she doesn't bother to do a damn thing other than incite drama within a Discord channel and pretend to be a little bit more powerful than she is. Like, to be honest with you, I don't care if she's an old guard or she did her time or this and that. If she isn't actively adding to the positive progression of Comfy and moving it forward, what is she doing there? Like, why? Like, so what if she has some friends? You know what? Unfortunately, you know, you, me, Mayo, and many other players were wildly let down and removed from the I guess, community for being something that they didn't really need or didn't really want, or they didn't like our positions or for whatever reason. But at the same time, you have players like Dub, don't even bother, Martin, Nautilus, all those ones that you were listing off earlier, Marco, and they're not doing anything but causing toxicity. And that is in a community. It's fine if you want to be toxic one-on-one, you know, like we're playing COD or whatever, and you want to be toxic, then I just don't play with you. But when you're a leader or hold a position of leadership in a community, that is unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. It's just like politicians, man. If a politician here in Canada, a politician flew out on vacation during a pandemic when we were all shut down and couldn't go on vacation, and he had to step down because he was part of leadership, and that was unbecoming of a leadership role within this country, and it should be no different than on a gaming community. If you do not have a position that is becoming of the tenets of Comfy, then why are you there? You should be removed, regardless of who your friends are. Happened to us.
Yeah, and honestly, in a general capacity, I don't think that really bothers me. Like, I don't give a that it's a community. Like if you're a leader, right? If Dub was in a different community, I wouldn't give a if he was in, like, I'm an anonymous community and he was a leader there, cool, dude. Like, whatever, he fits in great. I don't really care about that community, so they can have Dub. But you know, Dub, Zerbsies, all these guys, they're part of Comfy, and Comfy was something special, dude. Like, it really was, man. I don't know that it is anymore. But it had this like mysterious capacity to be something that didn't exist just yet, and be awesome and super fun. And they just really f***ed up, man. And I didn't want them to be like the only input that was there, and they just refuse to be any other input, dude. They really do. They really do refuse to share the focal point.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that Dub got passed over for my Game Master.
I think, to be honest with you, I don't think that was the case. I think that was just her spitballing why he's so angry. Essentially, it was her in the way that she always does it, was agreeing with me that
definitely true. She tells you the truth, but she does it in like those like plausible deniability way.
At this point in the interview, the utility company in my area was replacing hydrometers, and my house was on the list, so they had to shut my power down and subsequently had to end the interview here until the power was back up. At this point, Grom and I had been talking for approximately an hour and a half. But this isn't the end of this story. I will continue to allow others to tell their stories and experiences on the Comfy Valheim server, because we have just scratched the surface of how toxic this place truly can be. So if you're interested in hearing more of this story, make sure to check out the other parts to this video. The links for those videos will be in the description of this video, as well as a link to join my Discord if you want to get in touch with me. Again, I will remind anybody that is watching this, whether you're from Comfy or not, to please be respectful of my comment section. If you bring the attitude that I'm explaining here into my comment section, you will be removed, you will be blocked. You are free to express an opinion that is different than myself, but please do it in a mature fashion. To everybody else watching this, my subscribers, everybody that's on my Discord, I appreciate the support you've given me over the last couple of months. And just in the event that this is actually going to happen, the people over at Comfy Valheim have expressed that they're going to have a viewing party of all my videos. To me, that means that they are going to try to silence my videos by giving it thumbs down. So if you're watching this and you support me and you support the Valheim community and positive interactions with online gaming, please give this video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. You can check out my other content on my channel. I do a lot for the community. I do a lot of tutorials and showcase of some pretty cool builds. So if this is the first time you're seeing one of my videos, please check out my other content. Give me a like, drop some comments, subscribe if you're feeling like it, and I will catch you all on the next video.